So let's see where we can start. Mabel, let me remind you of your agenda, which was to try and help other people get started. So I'll leave it to you. Where do you think we ought to start?
I'd like to start with Rose.
Okay.
Rose, you know, you were saying that you were lonely. Well, I wish you would talk to me sometimes, because I'm lonely too.
How can you be lonely? You've always got your family with you.
Yeah,
And when you're not with them, then you're watching television. I don't want to interrupt you.
they just drop by sometimes, and I don't care if you interrupt me when I'm watching television.
Well,
Because it's not the same, you know. We're like the same.
I don't know. I look at George walking down the hall, trying to get better. I'd like to help if I can, George, but I don't know what to do, and I don't know if you'd want me to.
Oh, hey, wait a minute. You can talk to me. If you want to talk, we can chat about the weather, what's on TV, what's been happening in the hospital, things like that.
Maybe you'd just like to have somebody walk with you. Not talk, just walk with you.
Well, might take you now to get to the elevator.
It's okay.
I'd like that.
Try.
You know, I really like what was just going on here, Rose, between you and George and you and Mabel. And what really strikes me is that, you know, I hear both Mabel and George say they would have welcomed your coming out to them, you know.
That's right.
So it seems that it's sort of your kind of shyness, or your feeling that you have nothing to say to George, or that Mabel wouldn't be interested. It sounds like it's your own shyness that's sort of keeping you lonely here, don't you think?
Well, it may be. Maybe I could just sit with him and not have to talk.
Okay. Let's take a look. You know, Mabel, don't forget that part of your job today was to kind of take a look at Marge once in a while and see about her impatience.
That's right. Now, how are you feeling, Marge?
I feel fine.
Anything going on in the group today that's making you the slightest bit irritated or impatient?
No? Can't think of anything offhand.
Anything, let's say, about the way I'm leading the group? Doesn't have to be something big. I'm talking about the tiniest amount of irritation, because that's one thing we sort of thought it would be good for you to practice with. Am I leading the group perfectly, or is there something that sort of rubbed you slightly the wrong way?
No, I like the way that you're leading the group. I like the structure. Okay, I thought maybe the agendas were a little too long.
Why are you laughing, huh?
I think it's funny that the agendas were too long.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they were as well?
But she said they were. That was funny.
Yeah, I agree with you, though, that I think we've got a whole lot of work here to do, and sometimes it does take a while to get the agendas formulated.
I'm a little worried about Sonia.
Yeah, me too.
It's really sad.
Yeah, I think we really ought to turn to Sonia. I need to just call attention, though, Meryl, I really felt you've been tuning out the last couple of minutes. Can we track that real quickly before we turn to Sonia? What caused you to tune out then?
I'm very worried about the cameras over there and the observers. What are the cameras doing there in our room?
The TV camera?
Yeah, over there.
Irv told you they were going to be there.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Don't you remember, Meryl, right at the beginning of the group, I said there's a TV camera and that we have the group sort of on TV for the for the closed circuit for the students in the other room, that every meeting that we generally have observers, and that's the only way the students, medical students or residents, nursing students can really learn how to do group therapy.
My father was a photographer, you know, and he was always taking pictures. He was always doing that. How do you know that he's not in there, you know?
Okay, I can see that if you really thought your father might be watching you and watching this group, that would make you anxious. I think that would make anybody anxious. So, Meryl, let me ask you this. What can you do about that anxiety? What can you do to make that better?
I'd feel better to know that he wasn't watching.
If you were sure he wasn't watching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you want to check that out? Would you like to go into the room next door where the students are? You know where it is, right next door.
Yes?
Go ahead, take a second.
Could I?
Sure, just go on in and see who's watching. That's fine. Let's just wait for her. Okay.
Who was in there?
There was a medical student and a student nurse.
You feel better?
Well, I feel better, but now I feel absolutely disgusting because I made such an issue out of it, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, hey, you know, you have every legal right to do so. As a patient here in the hospital, you have a right to ask.
You know, I really like what you did. You were anxious, you were upset about something, and you took some really effective steps to deal with the anxiety. I think that's great, Merle. And I think that kind of frees you up to focus on what we're doing now.
Can I sit down?
Oh, yeah, please. Okay, so let's go on. Sonia, what do you think we could be able to offer you in the group today? How do you see us being helpful to you?
I'm totally depressed. I can't go off the ward because my eating's out of control, so I'm all cooped up.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm all cooped up. Can't go off the ward because my eating's out of control.
Well, all I ever see you eating is Diet Cokes and exercising on the bike.
Thanks, Tom. That's all I needed.
You know, I'm aware that you, earlier when you were talking about your agenda, you talked about wanting some support from Marge, Sonia. Would you be willing to say something about why you selected Marge?
I think of Marge as a strong person. She's put up with a lot and she's learned to live with a lot of pain.
How do you feel about that, Mara?
Well, I'm flattered that you said that. I wish there was something that I could do to make you feel better. I wish you'd lift your head up a little bit. You have a really pretty face.
I'm embarrassed to ask you to be my friend.
Oh, that's silly.
You know, I wonder if it would be possible for the two of you to arrange to spend some time today outside the group, even 15, 20 minutes and talking.
Yeah, I'd
Possible?
like that. Maybe after dinner?
That'd be nice. I'd like that too.
You know, George, I was thinking, you know, one of your things you wanted to work on your agenda is expressing some of your feelings. I wonder if you could say something about what feelings you've been having towards what's been happening, especially feelings towards Sonia here in the last few minutes.
Well, I feel that she's just upset because two of her friends left the hospital a couple of days ago, and I feel that in a couple of days she'll feel much better.
George, those are thoughts. Those aren't feelings.
No, they're not. Those are my gut feelings, that in a couple of days the kid's going to be much better, and the only reason why she's really upset right now, maybe because, her friends left.
George, could you say something about how you feel towards Sonia? Say, I feel...
Well, I feel that it's going to take some time, but I think that she's going to feel that really she's going to make progress, that she'll be able to make it.
Put it this way, maybe this will help. This will help you. What would you like to do? You see Sonia's in distress, obviously. What would you like to do for Sonia, or with Sonia, in order to kind of help her distress now? If you were alone with her, what would you like to do for her or with her?
Well, I like to have her sit on my lap so that I can hug her and tell her that everything will be all right. I'd like to give her some comfort. Maybe it's something I should have done with my own daughter.
Sonia, how do you feel about what George just said?
I like George saying that. It's more like what you need. I'm not used to doctors being that supportive, that human.
Certainly not the doctors in this group.
I didn't mean you. I meant medical doctors, not shrinks.
Not all shrinks.
Any other feelings about Sonia today and what's just been happening?
It's so good to see her not hiding anymore.
I feel really good. I really like that you talk to us. I like it when you ask us, what you want for us. I like to hear you talk.
A lot different from the Sonia we saw about 25 minutes ago. I think we've really done a lot of good work on this, but I think we ought to move on. Mabel, I wonder, where should we turn to now, do you think?
I'd like to hear from Tom.
Okay.
Tom, I'm aware that your agenda today, you remember, you started off with saying, well, why do people call you names? Why does your doc call you names? And then we kind of got into the question, I guess that was you, Sonia, and maybe you, Marge, kind of suggested that maybe you could take a look at how you behave here in this group. Do you behave passive aggressively? Do you behave like a kid? So would it be okay if we sort of check that out in the group so you get some feedback on how you behave? All right?
Okay.
Okay. And get some feedback for Tom about this. How have people been observing him?
Well, Tom tried to scare me by telling me there was a mouse on the ward. Shoot, like a little snitch.
Why did you tell on me? That wasn't in here. I didn't do anything to you.
Marge, I'm aware we haven't checked in with you for a while. I'm wondering if you have any feedback towards Tom. Is there anything that's been going on around Tom in the group today that causes, remember, just the slightest bit of irritation or impatience?
Tom teases. He told me my boyfriend was on the phone and he wasn't.
How does that make you feel?
I walked all the way down the hall. I was expecting the call. I didn't like it.
How about in the group today, Marge? Anything going on in this last hour that causes any sort of reaction for you?
When he was doing the bicycle, Sonia didn't like it. I don't know why he does things like that.
I don't like that when he laughs. When I was talking about my hand, and he was laughing at him like that.
I wasn't laughing at you. I like to hear people laugh. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing because you said hand so many times. Hand.
How'd the laughter make you feel, Mabel?
I just felt bad because I thought he didn't like me. And I just felt like I was taking up too much time.
Is that the way you were hoping Mabel would feel when you laughed? So what's happening here is that you do something and it has a kind of result in someone else in Mabel that you didn't want to happen, right?
No, I didn't want to.
Okay, well that's really important piece of learning. Others?
Sorry, Mabel.
Meryl, are you with us? Could you, Meryl? Have you been following what's been going on? Could we check in with you? What have you been feeling about Tom during the meeting?
Tom, you laughed at me too.
I didn't laugh at you.
Yes, you did. You laughed at me when I said that my grandfather molested me.
I didn't laugh.
You laughed.
I didn't laugh at you. I was laughing because you said grandfather. It sounded funny. It sounded icky.
Meryl, could you say something about how the laughter made you feel?
Well, it made me feel very bad. It hurt my feelings. I think you should say he's sorry.
Were you aware that the laughter would make her feel bad or that her feelings would be hurt, Tom?
No, I wasn't laughing at her. I didn't mean to make her feel bad.
But it sounds like the same situation with Mabel, that you're laughing, not wanting to hurt her feelings, it ends up with her feelings being hurt.
I'm sorry.
Other feedback, is it okay if we go on, Tom? Other feedback, other observations about Tom today?
Well, I feel sorry just that everybody seems to be picking on him today. I just wouldn't want them to do that to me.
Yeah. Well, let me just say something here, because I think what's been happening over the last 5 minutes, I think it's been a little hard on you, Tom. But I just want to say that I really feel that it's been something that's a good thing. You know, there's such a thing as hard love. You know, we kind of sort of give some criticism, but it's really coming out of concern for other people. So I think the group's been showing some hard love for you today, Tom. I think if people ignored you or didn't respond to this, that would be a way of not showing any caring at all. So beneath what's been going on, I think there's a whole lot of caring for you today. I think it's been a really good thing.
I like Tom. He reminds me of my son. And, you know, if you just weren't so rambunctious with the nurses in the hall, Tom.
He's been real nice with me. He checks in with me a couple of times a day, and last night he helped me with my food tray. You know, I had to get some stuff cut. He came in, cut it for me. Been okay with me.
Let's check back in with you, Tom. How you been feeling about the last few minutes?
I don't mean to make people feel bad. And I don't want people to think I'm laughing at them because I don't want anybody to feel bad. I like people.
Well, you know, that's funny. That's what I've been feeling during this group today, Tom. It seems to me the most important thing that's happened, I think, is that you end up trying to have some contact with people that you like, and you end up behaving in a way that causes them to be angry with you. You know, you cause them to feel towards you the way you don't want them to feel. It's almost as though something's gone wrong with your way of expressing liking to the people that you really do like. I think what might be helpful with you if we kind of got you some more practice with saying things directly when you like people. Would you mind trying something in the group? Just take a couple of minutes with this, Tom. Would you mind, could you look at anyone in the group and pick out something that you like about them? This seems a little hard, I know. Just give it a try. Pick anybody.
I like Sonia's hair.
Okay.
I like her hair.
All right. How about Mabel?
Mabel's smart.
Mm-hmm.
She can help you in the group. She can say things.
How'd you feel about her calling on you and kind of giving you time today?
I like that.
Okay. How about Rose?
She's always real nice to me. She doesn't say a lot to me, but when she does, it's always nice things she says.
Okay. Well?
She always smiles nice.
This is real hard, obviously, Tom.
Silly.
It's all right. You're doing real well at the top. Would you mind going on? There's only Marge and George left.
Marge is friendly. And I like that. I like it too.
George.
George always talks to me. He tells me stories of things that happen, and I like that. He'll talk to me for long times.
How does it feel? You did it real well.
Feels silly. I feel.
How do people feel about what Tom just did last couple of minutes? What was that like?
I like that.
See, Tom, I think what's been going on in this group today is really important for you, because I think, in a sense, that original question you started with, do I act like a kid? I think the group, in a sense, has been saying, you do act like a kid when you tease people that you like instead of really telling them that you like them. So I think it's been an important message. Okay? I think we better move on. We don't have much time left. Mabel, where shall we go?
No. I just really like how it's been going. It's so nice when everybody talks. And I feel like we're so much the same.
You know, we have one outstanding debt left in the group today. You remember that George was going to spend a couple minutes saying something about how bad he felt?
That's right, I forgot.
Yeah.
George, would you tell us about how you're feeling?
I don't think I can give you what you want of me.
Could you talk to the whole group, George?
Well, all my life I've been dealing with facts, helping other people, and I have difficulty in expressing other things than just facts. I feel that I'm not going to get any better. That's a thought, isn't it?
Keep going. Keep going. You're doing all right.
I feel I'm afraid that I'm not going to get any better.
That's a feeling.
I get this feeling that the world is crashing in on me, that I'm living in a room that I can't get out of. I'm afraid that I'm going to be a burden on other people. All my life, I've never had to ask anybody for anything. And now I'm beholden to all sorts of people for the most basic thing. I can't even get to the bathroom on time. My family has their own life. I don't want to be this heavy weight that they have to drag along with them. Life isn't viable that way. I don't know. I'm confused. I don't even know what my body's telling me. Whether the pain that I feel is something to worry about or not. I'm uncertain about what's going to happen next. I used to be a guy who helped others all the time. My satisfaction, my pleasure was in helping others. And now it's like I'm at a door, and I open up the door and there's nothing out there. I'm not like a kid. Has to wear diapers.
George, I know this hasn't been easy for you, but I feel you've shared a whole lot. I feel very moved by what you've said. I feel a lot closer to you. I feel like I kind of know exactly what you're going through. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Other feelings?
I feel George's pain, and I just don't know what to do for him. I'd like to help and do something for him, but I just don't know what to do.
Maybe you don't need to do anything. Maybe you just should listen to him. Just be there. Just stand beside him and let him feel his pain.
George, I think you've given us a whole lot today, and I also think the group has given you a lot just by being present with you. Is it okay to stop now, George? You know, I think we really need... Note where the focus of this group was. The focus was to a very large extent interactional. Focus was to a very large extent on the relationships between the people in the group. And let me just say a few things about that, because if you, I know in my own trips and visiting hospitals elsewhere in the country, I found that often group therapists fail to take advantage of the various positive things that can come from such a focus and try to focus their group on other aspects. For example, I think many group therapists in a hospital setting focus their groups on why patients come into the hospital, on the external problems that patients had that brought them in. So what happens is that patients describe their life situations, describe their dilemma, and then the group, in essence, tries to offer some suggestions how one might make that better, how that came about. I think that's the least effective way to run a therapy group. The type of information that patients give you about why they come into the group is usually skewed. It's usually a very complex set of circumstances, something that obviously foiled the best efforts of the patient, sometimes the family, often individual therapists, and the group can't possibly be expected on the basis of very limited data to offer some sort of solution. So that tends to be a setup for failure. The group is destined to fail such a situation, and patients go away thinking, staff goes away thinking group therapy is not effective. Other types of possible ways to focus a group might be on certain themes. Some therapists might focus a group on depression, or focus a group on suicidal feelings or on hallucinations. But I've always felt that these tend sometimes to be non-relevant for several members of the group. One thing that's always true of a interactionally focused group is that the members all feel the energy in the group. The group becomes a vital group. Everyone is interested. Everyone is engaged as they were in this group.
When you're talking about your agenda, you talked about
Sometimes therapists are reluctant to focus on interaction. They may feel with patients who are as disturbed or psychotic as some of the patients in this group, they wouldn't dare do that because there's some type of erroneous misconception that interaction is tantamount to conflict and to negativity. But that's not at all the case. There are many patients who have as much difficulty dealing with intimacy, dealing with positive feelings about one another, and so we try to teach them how to express positive feelings in the here and now of the group. You know, a good example of that was Tom. Tom had gotten himself into difficulty in this group and also on the ward for his teasing, for his laughing at various members of the group. And so what we attempted to do was to reframe that for Tom, reframe that so that the group members might begin to understand that Tom really was rather unhappy with other people being hurt or feeling angry or abused at his laughter. So Tom began to learn that there are certain aspects of his behavior which had results that he didn't want. And he also began to learn, as we had him do a go-round of positive things that he liked around people, that he very much wanted people to like him. And it was a good training exercise for him, I think, to learn how to express some of these positive feelings in quite direct, adaptive ways, rather than in this indirect way of teasing that almost invariably got him into trouble. And I think that was, I think generally perhaps evident throughout this meeting, that we tended to emphasize the positive things. You know, if you as a therapist have someone in the group like George, and George expresses himself in such a way that you feel positive, you feel closer to him, then say it. Let George know that you have these feelings. If you feel that Mabel is doing good work in the way that she's able to keep the group going like that, then let her know that. Incidentally, note that Mabel's agenda, in a sense, was a very indirect one. She would never have come up with this agenda in any sort of explicit way. But we moved from her feeling that she had nothing to offer anyone to a suggestion that she tried to play a major role in keeping this group focused and going. And in that way, she indirectly got the message that she had indeed something to offer. One of the advantages of the agenda is that it helps to focus the direction of the rest of the meeting. In a sense, the therapist goes into this section of the meeting with almost a wide-angle lens. He has a pretty good idea of what the work will consist of. And even before the agenda filling began, you could almost begin to trace out the contours of how this group would go. We had elicited a contract from George, say, that he was going to say some things, a couple of minutes even, about how awful he felt. We had a contract with Marge, and that Marge was going to try to do some work on letting us know about her impatience and times that she felt impatient. We had a contract with Merrill, who was going to try to cue us when she was beginning to lose focus in the group. Another cardinal role, I think, in working with agendas that increases one's efficiency is to try not to work on one agenda at a time. Try to combine agendas. That's why, for example, we try to use Mabel to call on people in the group so that her agenda was being satisfied at the same time she was helping other people work on their agenda. That's why we asked George to express some of his feelings towards Sonia George needed help in expressing feelings, expressing positive feelings rather than facts, as he put it, whereas Sonia very much needed support from others. So we had these two people working together, both of them, in a sense, beginning to accomplish their own agendas. Another thing that I'd like you to notice is there's been an emphasis in this section of the meeting on patients trying to improve their relationships with one another and begin to have some contact outside the group. In a sense, it's quite different from outpatients in that group, where extra group meetings are often fraught with some difficulties. In an inpatient group, you want to try to increase that. And so therefore, I considered it a good thing when Rose talked about the possibility of spending time out of the group with Mabel or with George. Considered a good thing when Marge and Sonia set up an assignation that they would meet at a certain time and spend even 15 minutes talking with one another. There's a good bit of inpatient research which shows that when patients leave the hospital and they're asked to look back upon the aspects of their experience on the ward that were helpful to them, they almost invariably will say that their contacts with other patients was a prime factor in helping them feel better about themselves. So let's go ahead now. We're going to watch the very last phase of this group, about the last 10 to 15 minutes of this group, in which the group's going to be very different. We're going to bring in the observers who are watching this group and have the patients listen to the observers' comments and then have a few minutes to offer some type of response to the observers.
For the next few minutes,
We're just going to pretend that there's no one else in the room and just discuss this group as though we were in a separate room having a rehash of the group. Okay, so I'd like you to talk about how you feel about the group meeting today, any questions you have about why I did what I did, or questions about why I didn't do something else, or things you think I might have picked up that I didn't, or try to put yourself in the experience of each of the members of the group.
Well, it seemed to be a successful meeting because everybody really participated.
Yeah, it was an active meeting.
Yeah.
So anybody get left out? Anybody left in a bad place? What do you think?
Yeah, I was a little worried about Meryl. You kept calling her to come back into the group, and I was wondering whether or not you did so enough, whether or not she felt really active in the group.
That's almost, well, that was really Meryl's chief issue in this group, and I think in some other groups she's been in too, the whole question of focusing, being able to concentrate. So we kept trying to tune it back, but what you're saying is we should have done that more and help her participate more in the group. Well, maybe so. I think let's check in with Meryl after we finish and see how she feels about that. Okay? Any other people?
Yeah, I thought it was exciting to see Mabel really take time for each of the other people, and to see her call on them was great.
Yeah, she was terrific today, really. Yeah, she really was helpful to other people, and I don't know if she's had an experience like that for a long time. Because, you know, she started off the group by saying she doesn't feel like she has anything to offer anymore. I really like what she did today.
Yeah.
Who else?
Well, I have a question about what you did with Sonia. When you asked her to specifically say who she wanted support from, I was wondering why you did that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, at that point, Sonia came in the room and she was feeling so despairing and furthermore so helpless, as though she couldn't do anything to help herself. So what I was really trying to work on is helping her take some responsibility for helping herself. See, so I tried to take a look at, she was been in other groups that she got something out of, and so she was asked to select what had helped her in those other groups. And she said, well, you know, she got support. So then I asked her to go further with it. Well, who do you want support from? I think that's irritating for someone to ask you who you want support from. You'd rather it came spontaneously. But I was doing it quite deliberately because that's a way of her learning to take care of herself, learning how to be her own parent. You know, because after all, learning to be your own mother and father is sort of the goal of all psychotherapy. Others.
Yeah, I guess I'm concerned about Tom. He was he was part of a lot of the focus for a long time. It seemed like he got more feedback really than anybody else. And I was...
You think it was too much?
Well, he seemed to take it pretty well, and he went around all the way around, but and to talk to each of the people about how he felt about them, and I thought he was really successful doing that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm concerned about him.
I've got some concerns about that too. You know, this is Tom's first meeting. He's been wanting to come to this group, and he's been very, very hyperactive on the ward. Everybody has seen that, and he's really settled down nicely in the last few days with a lot of meds. So it's his first meeting, and I worry too whether or not it was sort of too much for him. The thing is that what was being said to Tom was terrific. I mean, he got a lot of really good feedback, you know, especially the whole issue of being able to say to people directly, you know, how he likes them and which ways he likes them rather than teasing them. But then the question is, was Tom so anxious about so much focus that he couldn't hear the feedback? So maybe we can check in on that. Okay. Let's see, anything else before we stop? Other people in the group.
Well, I was thinking about Marge. In the beginning, when you were doing the agenda, she wanted to express anger and aggression, and occasionally you checked in to see whether or not she was feeling irritated at all.
Right.
And so I don't know if she got to realizing any of that anger.
Well, you know, in the group, what we're trying to do is work almost with sort of microscopic feelings that are similar to, at least in quality, but not in quantity, to the sort of larger feelings they might have outside the group. So, yeah, the things we're asking her to respond to were very minor, but it's a sort of beginning for her to immediately express frustration or impatience. She did that well a couple of times. She did that, when was the first time? When she talked about the agenda's taking too long and got support from that from others, and then did it when she talked about Tom too. But you know, we could have worked more with that. We could have gone back to her other times in the group. But basically, it was a pretty supportive group.
It was. I'd just like to say a couple things, if I might. One is, I thought that I've just seen Rose for the past week, and I feel that she really made an effort to contact the other people and talk to them a lot more than I've seen her do, which was great.
Yeah, I really like what she did too. Remember, that was one of the things too with the agenda. Remember, Rose's agenda when she first started was depression.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything with that in a group. It's just too big. You need to take some sort of small part of that. So then she came up with the agenda of looking at loneliness and how she made herself lonely in the group, and she did good work on that in the group today. Good work on that.
Yeah.
Who else?
The only other thing was George. You know, I'm just a little worried. George went out on a limb, I think, and I noticed that he was having a little trouble pulling himself back in, getting control of himself at the end.
Yeah, George took some real risks today, and
Yeah.
it was not easy to do. And you know, in addition to everything else with George, he really has a major issue of being in the role of the medical profession and then having to take the role of the patient, and that is hard to do. So he took some big risks today. I had a lot of respect for what he did in the group today. Yeah. Okay, I think we talked about everyone.
I think so.
Okay, let's sort of reconvene the group and see if any of the people in the group got some response to any of the issues we raised.
Okay.
Good. Okay, you know, we've got just a few minutes left. Time enough for us to respond to the observers' comments, observations. Anybody got any feelings about what we just heard?
I always wondered what you guys talked about after meetings.
So, how'd you feel about it?
Well, I feel they were concerned. And I felt like they listened to us, what we had to say.
Do you have any specific responses to anything they said about you?
Well, I think that I may not have gotten in touch with anger that I would feel outside, but I feel like I was more direct today.
I think you were too. Yeah. Okay. Other responses to the observers. They had a lot of concern, Tom, about you. Did you have any feelings about any of their remarks to you? They were wondering whether the feedback felt too heavy, whether you might be upset about it.
When I was feeling embarrassed when everybody was waiting for me to say something about each person. And I felt like when everybody was saying things to me, I felt like they didn't want me to laugh anymore, but I like to laugh. And I don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Any feelings about Tom, about what Tom was just saying?
Tom, I don't want you to stop smiling. Got a wonderful smile.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, Tom, because I would hate for you to hear as a result of this group that people don't want you to be high-spirited, because I don't think that's what I'm hearing. I think it's a really specific thing. The issue that when you like people, is there a way to let them know that without in some way kind of laughing in a way that hurts their feelings?
I don't want to hurt their feelings.
So do you understand the point then, the difference? Okay. And what about the other issue that you might feel upset a couple hours after the group from the feedback you got? Okay. Okay, good.
No, I like these people.
Okay, so we can keep working on this issue then tomorrow. All right. Other responses? George, there was lots of comments about you. What did you feel about the discussion?
Well, first off, I must tell you how terrible I feel about the way I acted. I mean, this isn't the way I usually am. Losing control like that, I feel like I need to apologize. It just isn't me.
Well, you know, I don't think apology is really right, George. It's not you, but I thought, in a sense, isn't this the you that you want to become? The you that wants to kind of express yourself and to be more in touch with your feelings and with other people.
I guess so, but it's...
You really did that today.
It sure is hard.
I think you did a lot of work today. What about the other issue? The issue about that we all talked about here, about switching roles, you know, not being a doctor and suddenly being a patient, how hard that is. Did that ring any bells for you?
Well, it is very difficult, being a doctor in this hospital for so many years and knowing literally everybody here on all the floors, all the doctors. And now I have my colleagues who come in and they're talking to me and telling me how much of a viable life I can have. And I'm beginning to realize what kind of a pat phrase viable is. They don't know what it is being in this kind of a body and maybe dragging around and being a burden to everybody.
It sounds like you're still struggling with the idea of whether or not you want to continue to live, not being able to be a surgeon, not being able to be operating all day long.
I guess so, yes. I am.
Well, let me ask you something. Did you feel in the meeting today, maybe especially in the last part of the meeting today, that you were really alive?
What do you mean by alive?
Well, I had a feeling, especially during those few minutes that you were telling us how you felt, of somehow kind of a part of you coming to life. You know, a part that I hadn't seen before, or maybe you haven't even seen before. I sort of felt you were very much alive then, living in a different way, letting something out of you.
Yeah.
You know
I guess so.
what I mean?
I guess so. I guess that did happen.
Mm-hmm. Real good start today, George. It's great. Other feelings? Responses to the observers. Who else? Merrill? There was some question raised about whether or not you got left out in the group today. How did you feel about their comments?
I didn't feel left out. I don't really like very much attention, and I guess the only thing I still really feel is that sometimes I still tune out and just feel like I'm not really here sometimes.
But, you know, the other part of it, though, Meryl, is the whole question of what extent you tune in. Because I had a feeling of you tuning in a whole lot during this meeting today. You're really tracking things. Every time we called on you, you were right here and present with us. Should we have called on you more often?
I don't think so. I felt good about today.
Okay. So we'll keep working in the same direction in future meetings. Okay. Other feelings? Anybody?
I thought it was really hard to believe what she was saying about my doing a good job. Is that okay?
Well, tell me more. Why did you have a hard time believing that?
I don't know if it's okay to say anything bad.
Oh, I see.
Is it okay?
It's okay.
Okay. It's just like I couldn't believe it when she said I did a good job calling on people and things. It's like I didn't want to believe that. I couldn't believe she's talking about me.
So I wonder if that's not part of your perhaps always kind of selling yourself a little short. Maybe that's another kind of issue we could be working on here in the meetings in the future.
Okay.
Okay. Sonia, well, what about you before we stop? Do you have any feelings about anything the observer says or anything about the meeting in general? What kind of experience was it for you today?
Well, I wouldn't mind being taken care of like George's daughter.
Mm-hmm. That felt good then, huh?
And later I might get together with Marge.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. It was a tough meeting for you today, Sonia, but I'm really glad you stuck with it, stayed with it. I think you did a lot of work.
I really liked the way that she reached out and just asked more. I like the way the group supports everybody here.
Yeah, it's the kind of meeting I hate to bring to a close, but there's going to be a staff meeting in this room in about 2 minutes, so we got to clear out. I'll see you all tomorrow. Okay. When we speak of working in the here and now or working in interaction, I think that for interaction to be applied therapeutically, we are best if we think of it as occurring in 2 stages. You know, one stage is the actual plunging into the interaction in which people care about one another, they give feedback to one another, they have feelings towards one another in the group. But there's a second part of the here and now which is equally important, which is that the group then begins to take a look at what it was that they have just been engaged in. So it's a type of self-reflective loop back so that we can understand what we've done. If we just do the one without the other, frequently there's not a great deal of learning occurring. In fact, that was the sort of mistake that encounter group leaders in the 60s used to make. The groups would be plunged into a lot of activity or interpersonal activity. Members would say, wow, you know, that was a powerful experience, but in a sense they didn't have any cognitive map that they were supplied with that would allow them to use what they learned in the group into situations in the future. And the other alternative, if you have a group with not enough interpersonal interaction but just a whole lot of reflection, you may have a very sterile group without enough interaction to make the group come alive. So you need both phases of it. In a sense, I think all therapy precedes something like that. It's a sort of an alternating sequence of affect evocation and then affect integration. And this particular 10 to 12 minutes of this group was a phase of the group where we're thinking about affect integration. We're helping underscore what happened in that group so patients can take it out of that situation, especially if they were excited or anxious. They may not really be able to remember exactly what happened. So we're going back and we're repeating it. Other things that happened in this last thing, it was a chance for us to turn back and touch each patient once again, make sure that no one was left out, see if anyone was left with feelings that we should work on. We were able to, for a couple of minutes, try to imagine what each person's experience was during the group, so that we could tune into somebody who had not had perhaps a sufficiently positive experience. The final review also helps to reinforce the patient's notions about the structure of the group. They begin to see the skeleton of the group, and that it really does have a very set, predictable sequence in the group. And I think they profit from the type of structure that's offered to them. Let me say a few things about observers in groups. I experimented with this for quite some period of time. Traditionally, observers may watch the group, and then observers and the leaders go and have a separate meeting about the group in some other room. Now, patients often, especially in a teaching setting, may grudgingly permit that, but often they don't like it. Often they feel that the observers take away something from them. They may even feel that maybe their group leaders are perhaps more with the observers than they are with them. So I've tried to find ways to change the attitude that the group members may have towards observers. For a while, I was doing this type of group by having the observers and the patients change rooms. The observers would go into the group room and the patients would go into the observation room so they could watch the rehash of the group. That was much better. Patients were excited by what they heard. Somehow there's a real fascination with hearing others talk about our behavior. Maybe it's something like when we were young, listening to our parents talk about us in their bedroom. But my experience was that when the patients heard what the observers were saying about them, a lot of feelings came up, a lot of questions came up. They wanted some time to ask these questions. So what I've done then is to tack another 5 minutes onto the meeting where the patients can respond to things that the observers said. And I think what's happened now is that invariably the last few minutes of the observers is often considered by patients as some of the most fruitful parts of the meeting. And rather than resent the fact they're observers, there are many patients who feel somewhat disappointed if there aren't observers there that day. In fact, if there are not observers there, I still try to hold a similar kind of meeting at the end, just with me and my co-leader spending a few minutes talking about the group and letting the patients hear what we said. In a sense, what we're doing, I think, is something that's important in all forms of psychotherapy, which is to demystify the therapy experience. I don't think that mystification is necessary. I think the therapy experience is powerful enough in its naked form to be helpful with patients, and there's no concealment, no Latin prescriptions that are really necessary. So in closing, I want to remind you again that this is a model of a certain type of meeting, a model of a daily group led with higher functioning patients, in which I've used an agenda technique. Again, I hope that some of you will be able to design from this model a type of group that may fit your own clinical setting. But there are certain features of this approach that I feel may be universally important. The idea of the therapist's activity, the idea of the therapist's sense of efficiency. There's not much time to waste in inpatient groups. The idea of providing safety and structure for patients. The idea of providing as much support as possible for the inpatient group patient. And the idea, too, that therapy should be open, that there should be a demystification of the therapy procedure, and that patients should be enlisted as allies in their own therapy experience.